at the crossroads of stolen land and stolen life. Right now, we are on the site of the African Burial Ground and the auction block where Africans from Congo, Angola, and other parts of West Africa were sold by the Dutch in 1626. The nation is a haunted house built on unceded indigenous territories and enslaved African labor. The same is true across the hemisphere, from Haiti to Brazil. My name is Tally Goff, and to address what has been stolen, I founded the Dark Laboratory in 2020. It's a trans-institutional organization for the study of race and climate through creative technology. It was in response to the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and we were able to start out by raising $20,000 of seed capital at Cornell University, where I used to teach, and the global reckoning forced me as a professor of Black Studies, a job that I've been doing for the past 10 years, to want to build community. We have over 30 members who are technicians and theorists from New York to Portland to Hilo to Helsinki, and we are storytellers together at this crossroads. We listen to the soil, we look to the constellations for answers about climate justice and racial justice, because one requires another. Through working at New Ink, we've explored XR storytelling for Afro-Indigenous art exhibitions and drone technologies. Here you can see Cayuga Lake upstate, which is sacred to the Gayakono tribe and the broader Haudenosaunee peoples. Now, Dark Lab has offices at 695 Park Avenue in Manhattan's Upper East Side, and we're continuing to experiment with video game design and DJing to tell the story of where stolen land overlaps with stolen life. So I've also been what I call a PhDJ for 10 years as a researcher, tuning into the lower and haunted frequencies of American life. We're called Dark Lab because of inspiration of Toni Morrison's 1993 book, Playing in the Dark. When she taught at Princeton, she had the atelier model based on the French idea of workshopping, and I was very lucky to be one of her students. And in the lab, I see a similar space for us to play and create theory together in the dark. In the lab, technicians and theoreticians question the scientific method as if there could only be one. There are thousands of global scientific traditions that get erased when we only look to Western science. The science driven by capitalist greed and fueled by genocide that got us into the climate crisis will not be the same science to get us out of it. We need creative science. Mining cobalt in Congo to make lithium batteries for Teslas is clearly not the solution. We look to the laboratory as a space of potential, recognizing historically that it is a space of violence and confinement for people like me, whose ancestors were forcibly transported to the Americas from West Africa centuries ago. For Indigenous peoples as well, the question of the laboratory and research is often a morbid one. Our ancestors' remains are held and still held in laboratory museums. Where is the consent and where is the proper burial? Dark Lab addresses these questions from the perspective of those of us who were not meant to survive. In the words of Black lesbian feminist poet Audre Lorde and her litany for survival. In 2017, I began writing a book, also called The Dark Laboratory, and it will finally be published by Doubleday in the United States and Hamish Hamilton in the UK. So that's January 2025, and you can scan the QR code to pre-order from the Penguin Random House website. The book traces non-human ecologies to tell the story of our climate crisis. It follows corals, volcanoes, mongooses, guano, bird watching, and marijuana. It begins in the Caribbean, where Christopher Columbus landed in 1492, which happens to be the present-day Bahamas. And it tells the story of dark laboratories, of Western racial experimentation, and violence across the archipelago. So what do we do at Dark Lab? We host installations such as the one you can see on the 4th floor, And we've been really grateful for these invitations from museums to stage these installations, and are in talks with the Guggenheim and Cooper Hewitt Museum, and we also just gave a talk at the Tate in Britain. We've been invited to do activations by architecture schools in particular, and have a series called Dark Blueprints, which is site-specific, looking at places like Wall Street to investigate this question of stolen land and life. We also support artists in residence globally because it is really climate art that is at the forefront of climate activism. We've been lucky to work in collaboration with some of the following organizations, and this has been a really great year where we are celebrating that we raised $200,000, so we're open to creative partnerships and welcome you to get in touch or to donate to us through our fiscal sponsor through the QR code on the screen. In the next 2 years, we are really excited to be engaging in a film project about coastal erosion. And Dark Laboratory really will be taking a turn towards the media of what magic takes place in the dark rooms of Hollywood and in photographic production. So the film will feature Afro-Indigenous communities from New York to New Orleans to Jamaica. I conclude my book, Dark Laboratory, with the idea of affective plate tectonics, which is to say, how can we feel for one another when natural disasters strike? It is up to all of us to stop burying the future, to stop betraying the future. There are parents who are being forced to bury their children in Palestine right now, and it is up to us to see the crossroads of stolen land and stolen life in the present. It is here at Pearl Street and Water Street where a sweet green stands in the place of what was the former auction block. So what are we choosing to do in the face of ongoing genocide? The war of dispossession that Columbus began in 1492 is not over, but it also means that it has not yet been lost, and Black and Indigenous people are still fighting to protect the land. There can be no climate justice without racial justice, so if you feel called to action by this, please get in touch with the following social media and QR codes, but thank you for your time today.